All righty, well, welcome. I'm Larry Dawalt. I'm one of the IMCC Dharma leaders, and I'm glad you're here tonight. Hope everyone's feeling okay. We look to have 17, 18 people online. Hello, Zoomers. I want to share with you tonight some thoughts about what the Buddha taught and what the Buddha didn't teach. When I first started my practice, this was a book that I really liked. I thought this book was perfect, What the Buddha Taught. If I can really get into this and learn this, I'll be okay. But I've also discovered that there are some things that the Buddha didn't teach. And there is a sutta, it's MN 63 that we're going to be doing sutta study on tonight. That's from the Middle Length Discourses. If you want to write that number down or put it in your phone or something, if you Google MN 63 from the Majjhima Nikaya, the Middle Length Discourses, this will come up. And the Majjhima Nikaya, of course, is part of the 5 Nikayas of the Pali Canon. And it's where we get a lot of our stuff. I want to do another commercial for this book, Handful of Leaves, which contains a whole lot of teachings. There are actually 4 volumes of this, and this book is available from Meta Forest Monastery, and all of their books are free. You send them a donation and they'll send you all kinds of books. And the translator, Tanisaro Bhikkhu, is one of the 2 main translators in Theravadan right now. The other, of course, is Bhikkhu Bodhi. So I'm going to just pass that on to you. This is basically going to be a study of what the Buddha taught or what the Buddha disclosed and what the Buddha did not teach. And the title of MN 63 is The Shorter Discourse to Malunkaputa. It's also subtitled, Why Does One Enter the Path? And the Era of Birth, Aging, and Death. It's an important one because in this sutta, in this conversation with this follower, the Buddha takes advantage of the opportunity to clarify what he taught and what he didn't teach. So to give a brief overview, Malunkaputa, one of the Buddha's disciples, requests the Buddha to answer 10 questions and goes so far as to say, if the Blessed One declares these answers to me, I will lead the spiritual life under him. If he does not declare these to me, I will abandon the training and return to the lower life. Larry, if you give a good Dharma talk tonight, I'm going to come back next week. If you don't, I'm out of here. No pressure. It's almost like a threat, isn't it? I want you to answer these questions for me. So what were the questions? One of them, is it true that the world is eternal? Antithesis was the second one. Is it true that the world is not eternal? Is it true the world is finite? Is it true the world is infinite? Is it true the soul and the body are the same thing? Is it true the soul and the body are different things? Is it true a realized one, that is, a Buddha, exists after death? Is it true a realized one doesn't exist after death? Is it true a realized one both exists and doesn't exist after death? Is it true a realized one neither exists nor doesn't exist after death? I'm glad it was the Buddha getting asked those 10 and not me. I see some other Dharma leaders smiling. Y'all want to take these on, guys? The Buddha responds by first stating that he never promised to reveal ultimate metaphysical truths. He asked Malakaputa, did I ever say to you, come lead the spiritual life under me, and I will declare to you that the world is eternal? And follows that with the other questions. He continues, whether there is the view the world is eternal or the view the world is not eternal, regardless, there's birth, there's aging, there's death. There are sorrow, lamentation, pain, dejection, and despair, the destruction of which I will prescribe here. He then tells this disciple that if one makes the decision not to lead the spiritual life until basically all their questions are answered, they might die while they are waiting for the answers. And he makes this point with the story of a man who has been shot with a poisoned arrow. And I want to read from the sutta at this point. It's just as if a man were wounded with an arrow thickly smeared with poison. His friends and companions, kinsmen and relatives, would provide him with a surgeon, and the man would say, I won't have this arrow removed until I know whether the man who wounded me was a noble warrior, a priest, a merchant, or a worker. He would say, I won't have this arrow removed until I know the given name and clan name of the man who wounded me, until I know whether he was dark, ruddy brown, or golden colored, until I know his home village, town, or city, until I know whether the bow with which I was wounded was a long bow or a crossbow, until I know whether the bowstring with which I was wounded was fiber, bamboo threads, sinew, hemp, or bark, or made by Nike. I just threw that in. Until I know whether the shaft with which I was wounded were those of a vulture, a stork, a hawk, a peacock, or another bird. Until I know whether the shaft with which I was wounded was bound with the sinew of an ox, a water buffalo, a langur, or a monkey. He would say, I won't have this arrow removed until I know whether the shaft with which I was wounded was that of a common arrow, a curved arrow, a barbed, a cat-toothed, or oleander arrow. The man would die, and those things would still be unknown to him. I haven't met that guy. What the Buddha was trying to communicate was that knowing the answers to certain metaphysical questions will not help one on the spiritual path. Basically, he's saying the Buddhist path is not designed to provide theoretical answers to philosophical questions. It's just not the purpose. Later in the sutta, referring to what he has left undeclared regarding the 10 questions, the Buddha says, why have I done this? Why have I left these undeclared? Why? Because it's unbeneficial. It does not belong to the fundamentals of the spiritual life. It does not lead to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. That's why I've left it undeclared. Then the Buddha takes Malakaputa back to the basics. And what have I declared? This is suffering, I have declared. This is the origin of suffering, I have declared. This is the cessation of suffering, I have declared. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering, I have declared. Why have I declared that? Because it is beneficial. It belongs to the fundamentals of the spiritual life. It leads to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. That is why I have declared it. Therefore, remember what I have left undeclared as undeclared, and remember what I have declared as declared. Now, I can identify with this guy, Malakaputa, because I spent 3 years of my academic life dealing with questions that did not have specific answers. Some of you may have done it yourself. Some of these questions were metaphysical, some historical, some philosophical, and many debates over the meaning of spiritual writings, translations. Yes, I have a Master of Divinity degree. Today we get into all kinds of questions about the origin of the earth. Where did we come from? How did we evolve? What's out there? What happens after we die? How do we live and make our lives better? A couple of weeks ago, I got to hear Dr. Deepak Chopra at Queen's University. And he talked a lot about well-being. He had 7 paths to well-being. And some of the quotes this guy gave and some of the things that he recited about science were just mind-boggling to me. And my first thought was, I need to start reading his books. I need to learn more about this. And then I found out there were 90 of them. And I thought, where's Bhikkhu Bodhi? I'm going to go back to what I really have been studying. And this is important because whether we get the answers to the questions or not does not relieve suffering. And I think we have to decide which questions do we want to consider. If you want to know where the world came from, study. If you want to know about carbon dating, if you want to know about archaeology, if you want to know about the stars, study it. Go for it. Enjoy it. Major in it. Get a master's. Get a PhD. But the Buddhist path is a different path. It's the path the Buddha declared, and for many of us, it's refreshing. It's a refreshing path because it is specific and gets straight to the point. And I like that, straight to the point. In his wonderful little volume on the Noble Eightfold Path, this is the book I was talking about in the intro class, Bhikkhu Bodhi spends his entire opening chapter writing about the way to the end of suffering. And he writes in that introduction, all problems can be reduced to the problem of suffering. Thus, what we need is a way that will end this problem finally and completely. He goes on to say, the Buddha does not merely touch the problem of suffering tangentially. He makes it rather the very cornerstone of his teaching. He starts with the 4 noble truths that sum up his message with the announcement that life is inseparably tied to something he calls dukkha. And this is a Pali word, Pali, the language in which most of our translations are written, the language of the Buddha. It's often translated as suffering, but it means something deeper than pain and misery. It refers to a basic unsatisfactoriness running through our lives, the lives of all but the enlightened, he writes. Sometimes this unsatisfactoriness erupts into the open as sorrow, grief, disappointment, or despair. But usually it hovers at the edge of our awareness as a vague, unlocalized sense that things are never quite perfect, never fully adequate to our expectations of what they should be. This fact of dukkha, the Buddha says, is the only real spiritual problem. The other problems, the theological and metaphysical questions that have taunted religious thinkers through the centuries, he gently waves aside as matters not tending to liberation. And I inserted there as far as have questioned, taunted religious thinkers through the centuries, my 3 years of study. And some of you, I know, have had that amount, if not more, of studies like this. When I was up at Empty Cloud Monastery in February, I remember Bhante Siddhasa talking about how there are those who have a need to take Buddhist teachings and westernize them by trying to apply them to various situations. What would the Buddha say about this or that today? What would the Buddha say about economics? What would the Buddha say about politics? What would the Buddha say about violence and other subjects? He talked about how people in the West seem to be looking for a religion that will answer every question and can be applied to every situation. And as you think about religious society in the West, there are religions that try to answer everything. At the same time, I believe the Buddha would say the same thing today as he said 2,500 years ago. I teach dukkha, suffering, stress, and the path leading to the end of dukkha. So what's the message of the Buddha in the shorter discourse to Malakaputta, MN 63? What's he saying? I'm going to try to put it in one paragraph. I still want you to read all 4 or 5 pages, but I'm going to try to put it into one paragraph. Stick with the basics. I've told you what you need to know. Whether there is the view the world is eternal or the view the world is not eternal, regardless, there's birth, there's aging, there is death, there are sorrow, lamentation, pain, dejection, and despair, the destruction of which I prescribe here and now. The whole teaching can be summed up in the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. I have declared it because it is beneficial, it belongs to the fundamentals of the spiritual life, it leads to a reduction of craving and desire, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. The Venerable Malakaputta was satisfied in the Blessed One's words. May we be as well.